power in a factory, power in the land, power in the hand of the worker. But it all amounts to nothing if together we don't stand. There is power in a union. Now the lessons of the past are all learned with workers' blood.
Hello everyone, welcome to the April 4th Coalition Show. This is the April 27th edition of the show, and the focus is going to be on May Day today. But the April 4th Coalition's mission statement is we are for workers' rights and collective bargaining rights and are against tax breaks for the rich and corporations who ship our jobs overseas. We endorse all of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but we always put the focus on Article 23. So Article 23, Section 1, everyone has the right to work, to free choice of employment, to just and favorable conditions of work, and protection against unemployment. Number 2, everyone, without any discrimination, has the right to equal pay for equal work.
Okay, hi everybody. Number 3 is everyone who works has the right to just and favorable remuneration, ensuring for himself and his family an existence worthy of human dignity and supplemented, if necessary, by other means of social protection. And number 4, everyone has the right to form and join trade unions for the protection of his or her interests.
Well, thank you. And we are the April 4th Coalition, and the reason why we have that name April 4th is because it's the anniversary of Martin Luther King's assassination on April 4th, 1968. And in our brochure, we always have a little section that talks about the pledge that he wrote in his book, Why We Can't Wait. It's seeking volunteers to join a nonviolent army. And I just want to emphasize that nonviolence. You know, in number 8 of that commitment card, it says, refrain from violence of the fists, tongue, and heart. And we're not going to correct any of the problems in the world when we turn to violence. It's not the answer. So we're moving on, and we're going to focus on May Day and the history of May Day and what's going on nationally, trying to bring the focus of May Day to have it apply to everyday life right now in America in 2026. But before we do that, we're going to watch a video that explains the workers of the world unite and fight, May Day explained.
Interesting. All right, let's watch that.
For millions of workers around the world, the 1st of May is their day. In the late 19th century, American labor unions were fed up with being overworked, in dangerous conditions, and with little pay. So in 1884, the Federation of Organized Trades and Labor Unions met in Chicago and had one major demand: an 8-hour workday. And on May 1st, 1886, over 300,000 American workers went on strike. 3 days later, thousands of strikers met in Haymarket Square, where a riot broke out between cops and workers. A bomb was thrown into the crowd, killing several people. It was called the Haymarket Massacre. And today, May 1st is known as International Workers' Day. While every country's workers have a different history behind May Day, they all commemorate those who have and continue to give their lives for workers' justice.
Yes, well, that was very brief.
It was brief, but it's interesting. So, you know, we always, in America, like you were telling me, we have our Labor Day, which is at the end of August, but that comes from May Day.
Yeah, and the most impressive part is that the International May 1st Labor Day originated in the United States.
Yeah.
But we don't practice it. There was some videos that we watched that they said that May 1st, that was like a pagan holiday. People used to go around the maypole and everything, and then the workers adopted that day as the workers' Labor Day. But I wanted to go to listen to Howard Zinn. He spoke at a Labor Day special on Democracy Now!, but this video talks a lot about the movement, the labor movement in our history. So let's watch that Labor Day special.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Today is Labor Day. We begin today's holiday special with highlights from a production of Howard Zinn's Voices of a People's History of the United States, where Howard Zinn introduced dramatic readings from history. We'll hear Alfre Woodard read the words of labor activist Mother Jones, and Howard's son Jeff Zinn read the words of an IWW poet and organizer, Arturo Giovannitti. But first, the late great historian Howard Zinn.
The IWW, Industrial Workers of the World, was a radical labor organization of the early 20th century. It organized all workers, black, white, men, women, native-born, foreign, skilled, unskilled, which the American Federation of Labor refused to do. Its goal was revolutionary, to take over the industrial system and run it for the benefit of the people. When immigrant women in the textile mills in Lawrence, Massachusetts, went on strike in 1912, they were met with police violence and judicial intimidation. The IWW poet and organizer, Arturo Giovannitti, was arrested on spurious charges for murder. Here is his speech to the jury, which found him innocent.
Mr. Foreman and gentlemen of the jury, it is the first time in my life that I speak publicly in your wonderful language, and it is the most solemn moment in my life. There has been brought only one side of this great industrial question, only the method and only the tactics. But what about the ethical part of the question? What about the better and nobler humanity, where there shall be no more slaves, where no man will ever be obliged to go on strike in order to obtain 50 cents a week more, where children will not have to starve anymore, where women no more will have to go and prostitute themselves, where at last there will not be any more slaves, any more masters, but just one great family of friends and brothers. They say you are free in this great and wonderful country. I say that politically you are, and my best compliments and congratulations. But I say you cannot be half free and half slave. And economically, all the working class in the United States are as much slaves now as the Negroes were 40 and 50 years ago. Because the man that owns the tool where another man works, the man that owns the house where this man lives, the man that owns the factory where this man wants to go to work, that man owns and controls the bread that that man eats, and therefore owns and controls his mind, his body, his heart, and his soul. I am 29 years old, not quite. I have a woman that loves me and that I love. I have a mother and father that are waiting for me. I have an ideal that is dear to me that can be expressed or understood. And life has so many allurements, and it is so nice and so bright and so wonderful that I felt the passion of living in my heart. And I do want to live. Whichever way you judge, gentlemen of the jury, I thank you.
In the year 1914, 1,000 miners with wives and children who had gone on strike against the Rockefeller-owned coal mines in southern Colorado were holding out in a tent colony near the tiny hamlet of Ludlow. One day in April, the National Guard, financed by Rockefeller, began pouring machine gun fire into the tent colony and then came down from the hills and set fire to the tents. The next day, the bodies of 11 children and 2 women were found, suffocated, burned to death. This became known as the Ludlow Massacre. Mother Mary Jones, 82-year-old organizer for the mine workers, had come to Colorado to support the miners, and on the eve of their strike, as they gathered in the Opera House in Trinidad, she spoke to them.
What would the coal in the mines be worth if you did not work to take it out? The time is ripe for you to stand like men. I know something about strikes. I didn't go into them yesterday. I was carried 84 miles and landed in jail by a United States Marshal in the night because I was talking to a miners' meeting. The next morning I was brought to court, and the judge said to me, "Did you read my injunction? Did you understand that the injunction told you not to look at the miners? As long as the judge who is higher than you leaves me sight, I will look at anything I want to," said I. The old judge died soon after that, and the injunction died with him. At another time, when in the courtroom, the bailiff said to me, "When you are addressing the court, you must say your honor." "I don't know whether he has any or not," said I. Someone said to me, "You don't believe in charity work, Mother?" "No, I don't believe in charity. It is a vice. We need the upbuilding of justice to mankind. We don't need your charity. All we need is an opportunity to live like men and women in this country. I want you to pledge yourselves in this convention to stand as one solid army against the foes of human labor. Think of the thousands who are killed every day, and there is no redress for it. We will fight until the mines are made secure and human life valued more than props. Look things in the face. Don't fear a governor. Don't fear anybody. You pay the governor. He has a right to protect you. You are the biggest part of this population, the biggest part of the population in this state. You create its wealth. So I say, let the fight go on. If anybody else, nobody else will keep on. I will.
That was Alfre Woodard reading the words of labor activist Mother Jones as part of a live reading of the late, great historian Howard Zinn's Voices of a People's History of the United States.
Well, that was kind of moving.
It was, because I feel like we, as a country, are going through a lot of that right now.
In what way?
Oil, we're losing the middle class, the price of food, the price of gas, and we sort of just haphazardly feel like we have to keep going, and so we do, and there really isn't a change. Hopefully someday there will be, but it's going to take a minute.
Right.
It's going to take a lot.
People are going to have to stand up and talk about it. Right now, there is a call for this Friday, May Day, for people to just take a day off. Take a day off from work, take a day off from school, take a day off from spending money. Don't use that credit card, don't shop, and just a day of action and solidarity with each other. We have a couple short videos. We want to show them back to back. The first one is, how are you going to support May Day? And then the second one is May Day Strong. Let's watch those two.
On May Day, I am going to the fun and educational events that are being sponsored by Indivisible and DSA here in Charlottesville. We're going to have a May Day general strike, and part of that will be marching from the Free Speech Wall downtown to Washington Park, where we will have a party and people will be tabling from different organizations and telling us all the good anti-fascist work they're doing in our community.
Use your courage, use your conviction.
Power concedes nothing without a debate. We ain't asking, we are demanding.
The billionaire class should be afraid of the power of labor and everyday workers across the country.
No, one-day salary is what we make for here.
Fund working people's lives. Fund our families, not billionaire salaries.
We need to be bolder, we need to be stronger, and we cannot be afraid.
This May Day, it is important we reclaim our country, our democracy, and our future.
May Day Strong, it just so happens that, I was trying to find out if there was anything going on around here, and I got an email from the Massachusetts Poor People's Campaign, And they said, if you want to find an action near you, so I put in North Adams, and up came the name of Workers Over Billionaires. On Friday, May 1st, it's going to be at Williams College outside of the Presky Center at 39 Chapin Hall Drive in Williamstown. And it's asking people to come. There's going to be speakers, and there's going to be chants. It's going to go on for an hour. But, they're standing up and saying, we want to support workers rather than billionaires. And it seems like, I heard on Democracy Now! Ro Khanna, a congressman, say that there's 11 billionaires in the United States, and they have a higher concentration of wealth than what happened in the Gilded Age, which is, in the 1870s and 80s, that brought forth this, what Howard Zinn and what all those labor leaders were talking about.
Yeah.
That disproportional. We have women and children hungry, starving, working hard, working long hours. They were fighting for an 8-hour workday. I went and bought some new shoes down at Dick's Sporting Goods. The nice person that waited on me, young person, just got out of high school. I asked him, when did you start work today? He said, I started at 8 o'clock. I said, well, when do you get off? He says, well, I have a 12-hour day today.
Wow.
Yeah. But I'm just a part-time worker. But I work a lot of hours, This isn't right.
No. And you work all that time, and you go to the grocery store, and I mean, I have a family of 4, and you're spending almost $300. It's very hard to, and then you have mortgage, and we kind of are slaves to the everyday, the bills and everything you have to pay for,
right.
and to be a human.
It shouldn't be that difficult.
It's tough.
Life is a struggle, but, there's some people that they're so worried that there's not enough to go around that they hoard everything. Like these billionaires, they're never satisfied. I mean, if we're not saying people can't be rich, to quote Martin Luther King. We got nothing against rich people, but you have to pay, not get so rich so fast.
Right.
Why can't you just give a little bit more back? And that's what Ro Khanna and Bernie Sanders are asking for, a billionaire's tax, where I can't remember if it's 5 or 6% of their income that they would pay in taxes.
Right.
And that would fund a lot of stuff that would make life a lot easier.
It would.
So that's why we're going to stand up on May Day. Universal health care, we're working towards trying to get that in Massachusetts. There's a lot of things that we need to do. Again, we want to work nonviolently, but we want to say that the needs of the people are important. I think Mother Jones, she reminded me of this. I had this quote that I found a long time ago in a book. I think it's from a Japanese theologian, from a book called 3 Mile an Hour God. It said, the oppressed want justice, not charity. The rich want to give charity, but not justice.
Right.
And a just society, means that everyone has an equal chance to get ahead.
Right. If they could give up, some of their millions, and we could just lower the bar.
Yeah. You could
lower the price, and just make it easier for the middle class. I don't know. That's a beautiful ideology, but how do we actually make that happen?
Right. I read different religions, like the Taoist religion. They have a talk about it. They said life is like a bow in a bowstring. And the way of heaven is you pull a bowstring, you pull the top down and the bottom up. That's the way of heaven. But the way of man is to do just the opposite, to take from the bottom and give it to the top.
Yes.
We have to have a balance. We're obligated, like the Native Americans would say, we're obligated to live in balance and harmony with each other in the world. And right now, it's way out of balance.
It is, but that also, you talk about a religion, to try to find that balance in your own everyday life. That's something that, hopefully we all try to do. I know I try to do is, there's so much noise in the world, and every day we've become so used to, we have breaking news, sometimes you just gotta Find the inner peace. And
Right.
and in that speech in the Howard Zinn, at the end, the man said that he had someone who loves him. He has, life is really beautiful, but it's to see outside of that spectrum sometimes. It is very
Right.
hard because it is a struggle, but if we can find our daily happiness.
Like Samuel Gompers, I think he was one of the leaders of the AFL-CIO, they asked him, what do you want? What do you want? He says, well, what we want is a happier childhood, a more beautiful womanhood, and a more nobler manhood.
It takes, I think, a lot of solidarity and inner reflection to get to that place.
Yeah, but
we
if
all
you can
aspire.
show up at Williams at 1 o'clock, at 12 o'clock, 12 to 1 on Friday, please do that, or do what you can locally in your neighborhood or whatever, but try not to spend a lot of money on that day.
Yeah.
Just send a message economically that there's more of us, and if we are united in the solidarity, we'll work together. Maybe we have time for one more video, because Howard Zinn referenced the Ludlow Massacre, and we have a
let's
short
watch
video about the Ludlow Massacre. Let's learn about that.
Okay.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on? If you go to Harlan County.
Today, Ludlow, Colorado is a ghost town. Like so many other small mining towns that sprung up during the mining boom of the Second Industrial Revolution, it helped power the stunning growth of the world's largest industrial economy. Eventually, though, the coal was used up, and the town simply became no more. Ludlow, however, has more than its share of ghosts. It is the site of the deadliest labor war in American history, in 1914. Since the autumn of 1913, Ludlow miners had been on strike with several demands: union recognition, a request that the company adhere to Colorado's 8-hour workday law, the right to live outside of company houses, an end to being paid in scrip, money only good at company stores, and the elimination of various other abuses common to company towns of the period. For them, meaningful collective bargaining could deliver a fair day's pay for a fair day's work, not to mention a measure of dignity for these men that earned their bread in the darkness underground. On April 20th, 1914, Colorado state militiamen attacked a massive tent colony erected by striking miners and their families who had been evicted from their company homes, killing 18 of them, including women and children. The attack sparked a pitched battle. From the start of the strike, between 75 and 100 people were killed, and dozens more injured and jailed. The massacre sparked a public relations crisis for John Rockefeller Jr., the owner of the largest mining company in the state, and convinced Congress to launch an investigation into industrial conditions. Nevertheless, by the end of 1914, the strike had been completely broken. The massacre at Ludlow reminds us that class conflict has deep roots in American history. These are lessons that are especially important in the 21st century, as the gap between the wealthiest and the poorest Americans grows, as news reports announce the decline or death of the middle class, as class warfare is trumpeted by politicians and pundits, as right-to-work legislation is repeatedly introduced to state legislatures, and as the fight to increase the minimum wage gears up. During the Gilded Age, class divisions were an unmistakable fact in American life. From the Lower East Side of Manhattan to the cotton fields of Alabama to the treacherous mines of Colorado, tens of millions of Americans toiled under extreme conditions to earn meager wages in order to build the American industrial colossus. Meanwhile, corporate businessmen controlled their business empires from opulent boardrooms on Park Avenue. Even the nascent middle class of college-educated professionals lived in relative comfort. What people called the labor question was the burning issue of the day. Could a free nation such as the United States long tolerate such extreme inequality? Contemporary jurist and later Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis remarked, quote, "We can either have democracy in this country, or we can have great wealth concentrated in the hands of the few, but we can't have both." Which Side Are You On?, a song inspired by a coal miners' strike in Kentucky, described a society that was all too familiar for American workers. Quote, "They say in Harlan County there are no neutrals there. You'll either be a Union man or a thug for J.H. Blair." J.H. Blair being the Harlan County sheriff. In a time when the cost of rights in the workplace could be measured on the obituary page and class identity ran deep, it was clear which side you were on. In the 1930s, the United Mine Workers, the same union that failed to bring mine owners to the bargaining table in Ludlow, would launch the Congress of Industrial Organizations, the CIO, the most successful and dynamic labor organization the nation had ever seen. When it merged with the American Federation of Labor, the AFL, in 1955, the combined labor federation had organized both skilled workers and much of America's mass production industry. In post-war America, workers gained unprecedented influence. They were electing governors and presidents rather than getting shot at by militiamen. Labor, in short, had found a seat at the table, though often a junior one, compared to capital and the state. Over the last 50 or so years, however, the loss of manufacturing jobs, a variety of new laws making it harder for workers to unionize, and the rightward drift of the American political center have greatly diminished the power of organized labor in America. Wages for American workers have stagnated or contracted, and income inequality in recent years has reached 1920s levels. In fact, the American working class hasn't truly recovered from the recession of the 1970s and appears to have lost the ability to articulate its own identity and class needs. Since that period, wage inequality and consumer debt have gone up, while secure high-wage employment and union membership have declined. Yet despite the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression, the 2008 Great Recession, there is little evidence that American workers have the same fighting spirit as their predecessors in Ludlow. Those miners fought, suffered, and died believing that they could build a better world together. That world has not yet come to be. The rise of the CIO out of the misery of the 1930s stands perhaps as a lesson for our time. It may be that despair and opportunity are not that far apart. The ghosts of Ludlow remain.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on? They say they have to guard us to educate their child.
So I heard just a while ago, but this is coming up again, the silent depression. They say that we're in the silent depression. And I do believe that for some of us, because it's so hard. I mean, even people that rent, they're spending like $2,100 a month on rent when you could buy a house, but you can't buy a house because it's hard for the middle class. It's hard for the lower class too. I feel like, we are in a silent depression.
Yeah, that social mobility where you can do better than your parents. That was always the goal.
Yeah,
slipping the other way.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed listening to that history. I don't know. I mean, it calls to mind, like when they talked about Rockefeller, there's a local, my own grandfather worked as the gardener at the mansion in Williamstown, Mount Hope Farm. Mm-hmm. He was the main gardener there, and that the Prentices owned it, but her maiden name was Rockefeller. They owned it, And my grandfather was a gardener, and he talked to the other people, and they were just trying to get like life insurance. They wanted to ask for life insurance, and they ended up having a meeting together with the boss, and the boss more or less, intimidated a lot of the people, and so he sort of looked at my grandfather and said, what do you want? How come you're the only one asking for this? And the other people were scared. And he ended up leaving there and going to work at the Arnold Print Works for a year, and then he died of a heart attack. But, they were so rich, but they couldn't give benefits to the people that were working.
There's a lot going on right now.
Yes, it's an unfortunate situation. So let's stick together. Let's have some unity, solidarity, and let's try to work for justice for everyone in a nonviolent way
On Friday.
on Friday, May 1st.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Power to the people.
Yeah, thank you.
And before we go, I just wanted to show this sign, because we're spending billions of dollars, I think $46 billion to build detention camps. We want to build community, not the detention camps. So let's try to do that instead. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Power to the people.
Strikes of the bosses we must pay for. From the cities and the farmlands to trenches full of mud. War has always been the bosses' way, sir. The union forever defending our rights. Down with the black leather workers unite. With our brothers and our sisters in many far off lands. There is power in our union. Now I long for the morning that they realise brutality and unjust laws cannot defeat us. But who'll defend the workers who cannot organise? And the bosses send their lackeys out